Okay, it's 7 o'clock. So we're going to get started. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. It is our absolute pleasure to introduce Jason Watkin. He is from the PURICA team. He is the CEO of PURICA, and he is here to talk to us about mindfulness and meditation. So without further ado, I will pass it over to you, Jason, but one quick note, we have about a 45-minute presentation, so we've got about 10-15 minutes available for questions at the end. So if you do have questions, we ask that you put it either in the chat window or in the Q&A window. So yeah, we'll get started whenever you're ready, Jason.
All right, thank you very much. So before I start, I think you might have seen the background. In the 80s and 90s was mostly sciences and Eastern and Western medicine. And then the last 20 has been focused on contemplative traditions, and Indo-Tibetan tradition is my specialty over the last 12 years formally. So I'm going to be weaving those things together. A contemplative type look, or experiential or psychological look too, at what's going on in our minds, how we're reacting. And I know right now that stress is big, anxiety is big, fear, confusion, all those kind of things are big, and you don't know when things are going to end. So I'm not going to be getting into details of COVID and things like that, other than how stress impacts your immune system. And later on, I'm going to talk about certain things you can do, even supplement-wise. But the first part of the presentation, I'm going to focus on mindfulness and maybe elaborate a little bit, but also look at things that are going on in our minds right now, and then try to equate it with things that the Indians and Tibetans and Chinese and the Chan tradition, I'll be fleshing out those two traditions, how they help you get out of the stress, the reactive or habitual ways of behaving, and then how that impacts your digestion on the physiological level. Later, I'll talk about your digestion, your immune system, your ability to heal, your ability to think and react properly, and how probiotics, how your living microbiome ties into all of this as well, and how stress impacts that. So again, to begin, we'll start with the psychological aspect. So a lot of people with stress, they might not know what stress is. They would say, I'm never stressed. I'm not that stressed. It's not a big deal. No, I'm fine. I'm pretty good. I handle things pretty well. So if I elaborate on this a little bit, maybe we'll see that a lot of us, or most of us, are going through stress, and sometimes it's a lot, and we don't realize it because it's a learned response. So stress is the sympathetic nervous system. It's built as an alarm system primarily for that fight or flight. Normally, I'd be integrating with you in the audience and having fun with this, because it can be funny, and I think you should make light of the stress reaction as much as you can. Otherwise, it's stressful to talk about stress. So the stress reaction, fight or flight, but also there's the freeze response, and that's when it gets a little bit more severe. You're actually beyond the idea of anger or irritation, or I'll get into that in a second, or worry. You don't have the energy for that. So it's more apathetic, disinterest, a dullness, depression, things like that. Obviously, that can be a circumstance that's not too fun to be in, but at the same time, it's when you really know that you have to do something. The last stage called fawn, a lot of people don't know it. So the 4 F's, fawn is when you're constantly faking a response to appease everybody else, or even yourself. You're pretending to be somebody because you think I should do this. Even when you're by yourself, you can be doing this. And so that's called the fawn response. So it's the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Okay, so a lot of times we're mostly in the fight or flight response. The fight response obviously is anger, aggression, hostility. It's a state that you need to fight for your life, or you decide, I'm going to do it, I'm going to fight. And that, when it's a survival mode, obviously that's important. But most of us are never in survival mode where we think we're going to die or something, unless it's almost a car. So a lot of ours is basically maybe opinions and stances that we have, or different ideas that we have that people are challenging. So a lot of it has to do with people challenging our ideas, or doing things we don't like that makes us agitated. When we feel like, if you ever feel, this is the easiest way to do it. If you ever feel in a state of mind or body that's in dis-ease or unease, you're actually in a slight stress response. How much that is how big the stress response is. your whole body is gearing itself up to fight or run primarily. And that's taking blood flow away from areas of the brain associated with critical thinking and ability to think calmly and clearly, altruistic thinking, tying big ideas together. It's all focused centrally on protect myself and whoever I'm trying to protect right now. So it's a big one. So our anger or our hostility is mostly based on irritation or frustration or impatience or judgment of ourselves or others or distraction all over the place. You're constantly going. All those things are agitating. You feel agitated. That's the fight response inside you. And you're basically got blood sugar kicks up because you need a lot of energy. Your digestive system donates tons of blood flow. It doesn't really work anymore. That's why it's hard to digest and things go upwards when you're stressed, and you feel it in your gut and everywhere else. And you can have even cramping and gas and everything else can happen, or all these other things can happen. Constipation, diarrhea, all these things can happen just because we're wound up, whipped up. They call that in Tibetan the whipped up mind. It's just distracted and whipped up. So that's one. The other one is if you're in a state of worry or you're just anxious, that's the fear response, the flight response. You're gonna run. So you feel like you're here and you're trying to put that game face on, but really you feel like fighting or running. So your body is geared up to fight or run just because you're irritated, impatient, you don't like someone's opinion or that they've challenged you on something, even on Facebook or whatever else, it doesn't matter. You're geared up to fight or run. And then the fawn response is coming in to try to put your game. Oh no, just no big deal. Oh yeah, I know, I get it. And you're even when you're totally disinterested in listening to someone's conversation, you're putting a game face on, but inside there's resentment building up, and that's the agitation. When you feel resentful, that's a fight response. So it doesn't matter whether it's justified or not. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how it's affecting you physiologically and psychologically, and then how it's affecting people around you, because we spread that. It's really interesting when they do studies with the heart, that your field is spreading out about 3 feet that they can measure electromagnetic field in the hospital, whereas the brain is only about an inch or so off your head. This field around your heart's quite big, and this is affected by a stress response, sympathetic, or when you're at ease, that response, and it affects this whole field, how it's put out. So we don't know how it's affecting others. We can envision what the ancients said, that everything you are thinking and feeling and doing in your body is affecting other people. And that's where mindfulness is huge. So when we talk about this, we'll get into this. So there's that stress response. Distraction is really big, and it's a constant stress and stimulus, because we're looking at these screens and they have that blue light that keeps you vibrating. So that's why it's good to get those orange type glasses or things like that if you're looking at a screen, especially at night, because it interferes with your ability to go into deep REM sleep, and then the next day you're going to feel it scattered, you can't think properly, your memory is starting to fail, things like that, or ability to handle things. So anyways, that's a good way to do that. So again, stress response is distracting. We're distracted all the time in devices. How do we deal with that? And so mindfulness is a big topic. And because we've taken on mindfulness from the East and brought it to the West, there's going to be that transition period that can last a long time. And mindfulness right now, what a lot of people think of it is, I'm mindful of the way I speak, which is good. I'm mindful what I do with my body, which is good. I'm mindful of my feelings and my thoughts, and just to be mindful, be present. That's good. And I think obviously that's a great way to start. I'm going to be talking about something a bit different. In Tibet, especially, and in India before that, they used the mindfulness as in progressive stages. They would start with something like that. Be mindful of what you say. So basically pause. It's creating a pause for presence. So this is not new concepts, obviously, for a lot of you out there. This is just common sense. If you think about it, obviously, when you're stressed, you want to say stuff, and you don't want to listen to people. You want to cut them off and say what you think because you don't like what they're saying, or you feel like I need to say this. So it's the ability to actually resonate or engage with the pause, or in Tibet, they call it the gap, or the openness, of which everything comes from, is that openness. In Tibet, this is a great analogy that you could carry through this whole rest of this first part of the presentation, is they equate our mind getting whipped up in all these things I was talking about, in impatience, distraction, irritation, frustration, judgment, worry, anxiousness, dullness even of the mind, or apathy or disinterest, faking responses, resentment, all these things. It's like getting your head caught in the clouds. So those are all clouds. No cloud is permanent, so it's always changing, the dynamic. And underneath all those clouds, and allowing the clouds to even basically appear, is the sky. And so they say the nature of your mind is like blue sky mind, but we identify instead with the clouds. So the feelings, the stances, the thoughts, the ideas, everything that's flowing, or the habitual ways of reacting, we identify ourselves with that. I'm this person, I do this, I'm not so good at this, all those kind of ideas or emotions. And that's like getting your head caught in the clouds, so you lose sight of that openness and clearness and calmness, which is the blue sky mind. So I just think it's a great way to say it. The East has a lot of different metaphors and analogies that make it simple for everyone to understand, where you don't need to appeal to an expert to talk about prostaglandins or bradykinins or leukotrienes. What the heck are all those things? The brain, even though I'm going to get a tiny bit into that later. But this is more important. So think of blue sky mind and help to dissipate the clouds. How do you do that? So what they say in this form of mindfulness, I'm going to take you not from the start of what you would do normally in a progressive stages path approach, but more in the middle, where instead of being mindful of all these different things, is to bring in mindfulness of the breath. That was one of the first even sutras that the Buddha taught, Anapanasati, for the breath awareness and mindfulness of the breath. I think the breath is the best. The Tibetans joke about this because you can look at a pebble, or you can listen to a wonderful chirping of a bird, or you can smell a nice smell. But all those things you could lose, and then you can't do it anymore. So they said, with your breath, if you lose it, you are already dead. So they said, you basically stay with the breath. You always have it. And if you start to watch your breath, just that alone, for instance, once I just said all about what I said about all these different emotions and things that are going on in your mind, just the fact that you start becoming aware of them already starts to unravel them. Instead of thinking, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to be more loving, I got to be more happy, I got to be more intelligent, I got to read more, all those things are the do. And instead, they're just saying the being part. Just relax, you don't need to do a lot. And they use this analogy. If you tie a snake in knots, it doesn't work to try to untie itself. It just relaxes and the knots come untied all on their own. So this is the form of mindfulness that I'm talking about right now, where you're not pushing away thoughts or feelings. You're not grabbing or clinging onto them. You just let them come up and let them go. And with this approach that I'm going to talk about here, it's best not to try it out in public right away, where I'm going to be mindful of myself, because that is, if as a beginner, that is like going into a grocery store when you're really hungry. You're going to want everything, and you will lose control. And then you think, oh, I can't do this. Instead, try to get into a quiet place just for a couple minutes even. It doesn't have to be long. And you're going to pay attention to your breath. I'm going to talk about a few things. You don't want to leave a meditation when you feel like there's tons of thoughts and that going on. You want to stop your meditation when you feel like something's happened, that you actually, my mind calmed down a bit, or whoa, I felt super clear. Leave it right then. Even though you feel like you want to keep going, leave it when you hit that point, stay in it for a bit, leave it, because then you're more inspired and enthusiastic about going back the next time. And I apologize for anybody who's already in the different traditions. I'm speaking to this, tie it all together as if everybody was beginning at this. And obviously I was at that point a long time ago too. And I remember all these things. Is when you first start it, thoughts can fly at you. When I get into the process sex, thoughts can come at you really fast. And you think, why would I even do this? I'm thinking way more than I normally think, but that's actually not true. It's called the waterfall effect. When you're present and pay attention to your breath, you are much more aware of all the competing thoughts and feelings and everything that are in your system, or even the feelings in your body that you weren't even aware you had. you can feel overwhelmed a bit, but just know that that's happening all the time. It's just that you're ignoring it, or you're just learning to like zone it out, as if when you're driving a car, you just start to drive, you zone out a lot of things. It doesn't mean your body's not feeling it. It just means you're adapting to it. So the waterfall effect usually comes at the beginning. As you practice more, just like anything, when as practice, put the effort in and it becomes effortless, then it starts to become, they say, more like a stream or a slow moving river. They talk about the Ganges, the Ganga River. And then later, as it becomes really an effortless thing, they talk about being like the still ocean. The river running to still, vast ocean. What that would mean is you're really open-minded, expansive, really clear, because still waters run deep, really clear. So when the mind is still, it's really vibrant and bright. Your mind is totally focused instead of being all over in little streamlets everywhere. So you'll find that you're having really clear thoughts, really clear feelings. And if you don't tie thoughts to them, then you can just let them, they say self-liberate, like clouds, they float through the sky. If you don't fixate on the cloud and follow it, you just let them go by, and then the sky will reappear. So the same idea in your mind is we have a tendency to fixate on feelings and thoughts, and then tie a whole bunch more thoughts around them until they become really solid almost, and they overwhelm us. And that's the clinging part. Or we have all these thoughts and feelings and we try to push them away and totally ignore it. I don't want that. That's the same idea though. You're solidifying your attempt to get a dislike or aversion. And the other one, your likes or clinging. You want something. So these tendencies of mine are competitive, and they set you up in that stressed mindset. So again, the mindfulness part and meditation, like I said, it's a vast category. I'm just going to talk about the breath right now. And this is the technique. If you can sit quietly in a spot, preferably the most important part they talk about for people that say can't cross their legs or things like that is keeping your back straight. So if I'm sitting in this chair right now, you could put your hands down on your knees, or you can cup them like this, one on top of the other. And it's basically, that can help you to keep your back straight too. So it's not just, all these things are not for nothing or just some kind of ritual, which they can be later when you get at ease, but it's to help your back stay straight. That helps you keep aware. Otherwise you have a tendency to fall asleep, or you can get agitated if your back's not straight, especially if you have back pain. It can cause pain and aches and that, then you get agitated and then you can't stay still. So the straight back, but still relaxed, is super important for posture. It's the most important. There's other things you can look up on posture. It's the most important. Then the breath, just allow it to come and go. And what a lot of people do at the beginning and can use it forever is the breath coming through the nose, or if you breathe through your mouth, just watch the breath coming in there and going out there. Just stay right there with it. But try to be loose and relaxed. Don't really focus too hard, otherwise that can agitate you. So everything's about relaxing. But like the snake, I'm just relaxing. The breath comes in and out. Now, the tendency at the beginning is that lots of thoughts will come up, like I said, that waterfall effect. Just let them be, and don't label anything as good or bad. Just let them come and go. Let them come and go. And just bring your mind back constantly to the breath, and do that. Sometimes that technique is too loose for some people, and you can count the breath. So you could breathe out, breathe in, that could be 1. Every time that your mind goes off into thoughts or whatever, you can start the count over. You can go 1 again. And a lot of people say, well, why would I want to do that? I want to get to 10, or I want to get to, but that's just competitive stress mind. What you're really trying to do is you want that effortless to take place, but if you're constantly in competitive mode, it won't happen. So we're not in competition with anybody or ourselves. This is the opposite of the regular life, agitation, distress, and all that, likes and dislikes, and just being totally present. Stay with the breath. If you want to count, start counting. What if somebody says, oh, I counted to 500 the other day? And you say, if they're even saying that, that means they didn't get to 500, because nobody that's done a lot of meditation really wants to brag about it or put it on social media that, yeah, I rocked the 3-hour meditation, that kind of idea. It's, if you go to 500, 400, then, and you talk about it, that means you're not doing it properly. So keep turning over. Who cares what number you get to? Because eventually you're going to see what happens. And what typically happens when the water starts to run still your mind and starts to clear up is you'll have these sensations typically in your body or mind where you feel really at ease. Almost it could be at blissful feeling. Your mind becomes really clear. You don't feel like you want to think, but you'll have clear thinking sometimes, but it's not like you feel like I want to be thinking about this or watching this or doing this. You're totally fine just being right here, right now. And sometimes a lot of people have never experienced a mind and body so at ease and clear. So that's why I say, when you get that feeling, especially when you're beginning, it's good to quit there. And you could do it another one in even 20 minutes later, but it's good to quit right there. Stop right there, not quit. Stop right there, and then just rest, just relax, and no more technique. So in Tibetan, the practice of coming back to the breath constantly and just staying with the breath is mindfulness, or that in Sanskrit it's smriti, or jinshe in Tibetan. And then it's always coupled with, they say, like two wings of a bird, with alertness or a form of awareness called samprajanya or sheshin in Tibetan. And they combine it together into a term called drenche in Tibetan, drenche. And what that is mindfulness and alertness, inseparable like two wings of a bird. What's the alertness part? It's the awareness of when you're in that state of ease or when you're being taken off, and then you have to apply the mindfulness. Eventually those two things become inseparable and they're always working. You don't have to think anymore. You just, when your mind starts going off, it's automatically brought back. I watch the time here, make sure I'm doing okay. Yeah. This is a neat thing to remember for people if you are trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I know what states and how do I know if it's working? Because you're going to take this out into your life and you'll find that how you're reacting and behaving and even how your body reacts and feels is totally different. That's what makes it like you feel like you want to do it more and more. They say the first one is when you're getting in the practice and your mind goes off, it's like remembering a good friend in the crowd, an old friend in the crowd. In other words, you see it happen and then, oh, I see it over there. It happened. My mind went off and you catch it. That's good. That's the first stage. The second one is like drawing on water or a bird flying in the sky. No, sorry. The second one is the snake, that it senses tension and then it just relaxes and it unwinds. So this is more effortless a little bit. You're getting more effortless. It unwinds. The third one is it's like drawing in water. It leaves a trace and it disappears by itself. So that's even more effortless. Your mind starts becoming more and more effortless at this just with practice. And then it becomes deeper and deeper and everything starts to change. The way you see things, everything starts to change. And the fourth one's like a thief in the house. They say the thief in an empty house. There's nothing there to steal. There's nothing there to think that I have to put effort in. It just is happening naturally. There's nothing to worry about. And thoughts can come and go fine. You don't feel that you are clinging to them or writing stories around them, or you're trying to push them away, or you're overwhelmed by them. It's like they're just appearing. They call it like a rainbow or clouds, light clouds flowing through the sky. So that's kind of state you want to get in with mindfulness. And that is strictly with the breath. So why would you want to do this? Well, whenever you're stressed, just on the physiological level, it's causing damage in your heart and your blood vessels. It's inhibiting your immune system. It's the most powerful inhibitor of your immune system. So in these times, it's big. It inhibits your whole digestive tract, donates about 40 to 50% of its blood flow to your muscles. so you can fight or run, even though you're just irritated with someone on a screen or something that happened or something that's happening in your mind, or you can't sleep or whatever, things like that. So this is big, right? And it also, your ability to heal, your blood sugar goes out of control, which affects your mood. And that also affects your microbiome, because blood sugar out of control changes the way that they feed and everything in there. So everything is changing just by being stressed. So getting out of stress is huge for the body. For the mind, when you start doing this, and everybody can do this. This is the amazing part of it. Everybody can do this. Just put a little bit of effort and get past those few stumbling blocks, like riding a bike, putting training wheels on, get through it. Is the way that you feel and the way that you can handle life and the confidence level that comes in this, because you don't feel like you're so whipped up all over the place, which is what makes you lack confidence. You start feeling overwhelmed. Oh, I can't stand this. I got to get away. And that's not what meditation is about. Escape. It's about, engaging in something that you can take out there and affect yourself and others, but also you feel so much better. And it also encourages you to do other things that are healthy, because you just like the feeling physiologically and psychologically. So one last thing I'd like to leave with the mind, then we'll get into more the body part, the science, and then supplements, things like that, is this whole idea of how you perceive is changed by this mindfulness. If you can start to engage with the blue sky mind more and more and more, it's much more open and clear, and you can see things way more clearly than when the waters run still and deep. So this is a really neat thing from a neurophysiological, neuroscience point of view, and atomic physics, which I studied before. In classical atomic physics, the way that we perceive, right? So you're looking at me right now. I can't see any of you, obviously. Say whoever you're looking at, whatever you're looking at me on the screen, is first of all, science does not understand what consciousness is or mind. That's the hard question of science. They still don't understand how, because they are wrapped up in atomic physics, especially with the idea of matter and physicality, and that matter then must produce mind or whatever awareness or consciousness is. So that's a hard question. They don't understand, how does that happen? So they say it's an artifact or an epiphenomenon of matter. And I don't know what it is, like electromagnetic field or something, like, we're not sure. They're not anywhere closer to it. They can map where things are happening, changing the brain, but that's not consciousness, because you all know the way that you experience something is your consciousness. It's more than your body, because even you watching right now and what's going on in your mind, you can't explain that from a point of view of matter. What is this idea? So getting at that and how mindfulness can change your whole perspective of the world, like mind and its world, is when you're looking at me, your mind doesn't come out and physically touch me, or brain, for instance, the way science, your brain can't come out there and sense me. I can't come into your brain right now, or if something's in front of you. So how do we see things? How do we taste things, touch things? With sight, here's the one thing, is classical atomic physics says that light bounces off you, and then, or me say, and then bounces back into the back of your retina. And then the light it's flipped around, the image is a mirror image, and then it goes back through the brain, and your brain ties a whole bunch of conceptual, some of them are really subtle, but concepts, and it fits it into boxes, and then you see it. In other words, the eyes don't see, like a corpse can't see. But you see from the science perspective, in your brain, or in the ancient East, your mind. So whatever, it doesn't matter for this perspective. For this, what I'm trying to say is, you are seeing an image in your mind. It's like if your mind is a clear body of water or a rough body of water, depending on your mind. Your brain is a body of water. It's reflecting images that it's taken in, or from inside, images of what's going on in your mind, like in a dream. And then it's imagining what it must be like out there or in here. And then it's projecting that, in a way, projecting it out there to give you a sense of depth or whatever. But the only thing that you ever see, even outside here, whatever that means, is you only see your mind reflecting, like a mirror, or a body of water reflecting the moon, or your own face. So literally, from science perspective, you're looking at your own mind and imagine it to be everything else. So here's the key with mindfulness. I mean, that's cool in itself. If you go deep with this in meditation, it's mind-blowing. It's a little mind, and that's only the like light stages on the Tibetan scale. It's experiencing the idea that appearances are mind. In other words, your mind is reflecting stuff, and that's the only thing you can experience is your own mind. So if your mind is more still and relaxed, you see the whole world differently. You literally see everything differently. And if it's more clear and relaxed, you see yourself way differently. You don't see all the thoughts and everything. You see something deeper inside that's super calming and builds a lot of confidence. And it's pretty amazing. So from that perspective, mindfulness is mind-blowing, but also change your whole life. Second, you go on to the, now in the neurochemistry here, stressed brain versus sympathetic brain, that at ease state. So dis-ease brain versus at ease brain. Dis-ease brain is functioning in alarm mode, in a stress mode, sympathetic mode. It's the fight or flight, bond, freeze response, competing, distraction, all that. So what's happening is the amygdala in the center inside there, the amygdala is a portion of the brain associated with the stress response that gets everything alarm off so that you can fight or run. So it is built-in stress, habituated response, and you don't know why you're going to be stressed. Sometimes you get stressed by a color. You have no idea why that stresses you out, but it does. So stress can sometimes be very deep. And you don't know why it's there. It's built into your nervous system, your body, everything from past experiences. And sometimes you don't know why it is. So the amygdala, and it's tied with something on the top of your head called the default mode network, the DMN. And this is like it is. You're running on default. You're running on all the instinctive behaviors that you think are intuitive, but they're more reactive, instinctive things that have happened. You say, oh, this is going to happen again. I just know it's going to happen. Oh, you shouldn't do that. But a lot of times it doesn't happen, but we keep on waiting for it to happen. And then we think we're intuitive. That's a stress response. The default mode network, interestingly enough, is also associated with what in Sanskrit they call ahankara. And that means I'm making. It's ego. It's me, mine, I. So it's very fixated on me. Whenever you do that, I'm not talking about self-love and all the different things that people are practicing, which is good. I'm talking about really clinging on to me strong. And when you do that, it creates a more tense response in everything, because then everything is from a more narrowed habitual response, and it makes you react more intensely. Even when you're by yourself, watching a movie or somebody scares you, you can react really intensely. That's really strong default mode network activity and the I making. Okay, this is a cool side note. People that have used in clinic, where they in John Hopkins or with shamans, even medical doctors using ayahuasca, iboga, bufo, and magic mushrooms, psilocybin, that those compounds, a big part of when they're mapping the neurochemistry, neurophysiology, is they are decreasing blood flow and activity in the default mode network, which is interesting because people say that they feel like they're part of everything, or that they feel so light and relaxed and free and all that. I mean, you can't go doing all these things all the time, but the idea is that's because they're out of the stress I-making mode, and you're more into the deep parasympathetic, totally at ease, rest and digest, and really clear, calm mind. That's associated with the prefrontal cortex in here. That's associated with confidence and intelligence and ability to navigate different circumstances in a skillful way, and combined with something called the lateral frontal gyrus. These are areas of the brain that when they map with meditators, when they put all the electrodes all over the head of meditators that are experienced, in these areas, they fire up a lot when they are doing meditations focused on empathy or compassion. When these two are firing together, they're basically the counterbalance of the default mode network, that stress and the amygdala. They get you into what they call emotional intelligence. You're much more better able to navigate life, much more relaxed, but also wisdom comes from that. That's just natural. You don't have to read tons and tons of things sometimes. It's just natural state of wisdom, because you say it comes from the heart, right? And there's another neat thing I'll talk about before I get into some nitty gritty and what you can take and do, is when you feel like something is reacted in the gut, that your enteric nervous system, that's a nervous system, the ENS, the gut brain, that can act independently of your other nervous system. It's amazing. They've just been doing research for the last while on it. It's blowing people away. It's tied to the microbiome, all those microbes that live in your gut. And it can react instinctively. If you feel something in your gut, they've done experiments. What actually is firing off first, when they give something that's going to stress you out and you thought that you reacted in your gut first, what actually first happened was your heart started to change its electrical activity, which is really wild because the ancients said the heart was the brain, the mind. The mind was the heart and the head together, more centered here. So that's interesting. That field is strong, and it's the first one that kicked off with the nerve ganglion and the firing. The next one was the brain, and then the enteric nervous system. And what you can do to change how the heart reacts, that could change that whole cascade of that stress reaction, or even in your gut, is breath. It's the only thing that you can still control that's not an autonomic response. You can control your breath. When you control your breath and relax with it, just focus on it, in other words, relax, the heart can go down, the rhythm, and that can change the whole field around you, and it changes the way it interacts with the brain and the gut. They're all tied together. You can't get away. Interdependence, what they say in Buddhist world, everything's interdependent. But the heart, by this mindfulness teaching, can calm you down. And so what I want to see, what time here was, okay. What I wanted to talk about now is how to get into that prefrontal cortex, lateral frontal gyrus, blue sky mind more easily. If you have pain and you try to sit and meditate, or gut pain, or a whole bunch of other things, it can be really hard to sit as a beginner, and it can be really frustrating. So anything that will help you to adjust to any kind of pain or skin itching or anything is huge. And that was the first part of my life, was focused on a product. That was where we developed Recovery, which you'll see in there, or Recovery 3.0. It's to deal with pain anywhere in the body, breathing issues, skin issues, digestive issues, any kind of inflammation. Same as curcumin does that. There's a fraction in curcumin called curcumin 3, and they cut inflammation. So I'm trying to keep this more about mindfulness, but I'm saying if you need to deal with pain, at Purica, we've dealt with some really strong things. We started actually with pain relief all through the body. So that's huge. Also, sometimes the mind, it's really hard to calm your mind down and get into these stages. And then you'll have some, arrogant meditator, because that can happen sometimes. They're going to tell you, oh, you should be able to meditate out of all that. You shouldn't be taking anything to deal with that. That's what meditation is about. If you're having to deal with your pain and not dealing with that kind of stuff, instead of just getting through it with meditation, then, that's not real. But that, obviously, that's extreme. That's an extreme view. It's better to try to get some pain relief so you can try this. And then maybe later, yes, you'll be able to get out of it yourself, which is awesome. But anything to help with pain. So curcumin and our recovery products are meant to deal with pain everywhere and inflammation in the gut. The second one, if you have a really deranged or dysbiotic gut because you've been stressed a lot, or you just have an issue there, that is really difficult to sit. Probiotics are massive because, by the way, the information on probiotics is expanding. It's in a wild way right now because they're seeing that the type of microbes you have living in your tract, not only do we have not many different species living in there anymore in the modern West because of antibiotics and chemicals and everything else and stressed lifestyle or diet, compared to people that live in the jungle and that, they have a diverse array that helps them, produces vitamins, amino acids, and other compounds for them, helps their immune system to prime itself when the microbes sense there's exposure with pathogenic strains. It actually signals your immune system light up. The immune system can signal the microbes to help them with certain things, to produce certain things. It's absolutely wild. And there's compounds in between called defensins, especially the alpha defensins that are produced by immune cells and epithelial cells, and they act to coordinate the microbiome. So if you have a lot of species in there that aren't helpful, they're creating gases, they're creating noxious compounds, they're creating compounds that you absorb and you start reacting to, that make you tired, that make your immune system problematic, they make your skin react, they make your breath problematic, they just they interfere with your hormones, and they'll interfere with your blood sugar. And the microbes you have in your tract are literally influencing what you crave to eat or what you crave to do by sending chemicals out that get into your bloodstream. So literally, you think, oh, I crave sugar all the time. It's more accurate sometimes to say, no, those little microbe dudes in there are craving that, and they're making me crave sugar, and I wish I could get rid of them. So the idea is not to try to get rid of them with all these noxious things, because it'll kill a whole bunch of other good strains. It's to start out competing them with beneficial strains and foods that are beneficial for those strains, which are generally a lot of water-soluble fibers. They're the best. Apples and oats and inulin and chicory root, things like, there's a lot of things. Look at water-soluble fibers. They're the largest fuel source for a lot of the beneficial strains. So the more you feed that in your diet, the more you feed the strains that keep the other strains in check, and it helps to control your blood sugar. Well, controlling your blood sugar helps to control your way that you deal with stress, and even in your mindfulness will help you get into the state of the blue sky mind more quickly, because the mind and body is tied together. So you see, all these things are really tying together, and that's what we want to do at PURICA. We're all about mind and body. We're tying this Indo-Tibetan and Chan traditions from China and India and Tibet into a lot of what we're working with is the science, but also of the traditional medicines, in particular Tibetan medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and Ayurvedic, mostly Tibetan and Chinese, and working with the Taoist and the Buddhist and Burn traditions about balance and openness and mind-body coordination, and then going out in the world with that idea. So again, getting into mindfulness, if you had a plan, I would suggest deal with any kind of aches and pains, digestive disturbance, breathing, skin itching, anything you can think of that you just won't be able to get through, especially as you're starting. It'll just make you want to quit. Do everything you can to inspire yourself to create a new habit. And that's hard to do already with anything. So it's got to be that you see something. It's got to be effective on an ongoing basis where you're seeing more benefits, and it encourages you to want to do more. And the more you do, the more you just see that blue sky mind, or the prefrontal cortex, as far as science says, and the lateral frontal gyrus, where there's a lot of emotional intelligence. You're more apt to listen better. You don't have to overtalk people because you're stressed. You don't feel threatened by everybody. You don't feel threatened by opinions. Your gut functions better, and your immune system is really strong. Like I said, the immune system absolutely depends on low or no stress. If you have stress, it's sacrificed for blood flow and energy to get to your muscles and your heart to run or fight. So who wants that? Plus you age faster. Corticosteroids and Cushing's disease, which are mimicking basically that stress response, they age you. They know that when anybody, a rheumatologist will tell you, if you have an autoimmune disease and you're getting treated with corticosteroids, or you have Cushing's disease, which is high cortisol, you're going to be aging yourself faster. But sometimes the next stage of drugs are worse. Instead, take things that don't inhibit your immune system, like I'm saying, recovery, or the curcumin, or recovery 3.0. They're really powerful. They were made to be as powerful as drugs, but they don't have the side effects. They improve your immune system, and they improve the moat that lines all the digestive, respiratory, genitourinary tract to keep microbes out, and to keep inflammation down, and to keep digestion working properly. And 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your digestive tract. I don't know if you knew that. And there's more microbes in your digestive tract than the trillions of cells in your body. So they're definitely coordinated, and probiotics are huge. So what we did at PURICA is we got strains that are from, they're human strains in deep jungle peoples. So they have a wide variety of strains, and then tested them for certain conditions, like IBS or gut-related anxiety. Anxiety is huge, and it can often be tied to gut problems. Not just that you're feeling tense, you have bad gut, but your gut, even without knowing it, can be inducing anxiety. That's well known. That's in psychology. And the NPN, for one, are intensive GIs, just is for that. And lactose intolerance, all these things that you have to deal with, these are studied for it, and that's huge. So if you can take these strains, just that alone can start changing your life in ways you didn't know. Mindfulness can take it to whole new levels. So I think just to leave off, and then we can start with maybe some questions, is like a strategy would be mindfulness. Don't beat yourself up either. Just remember the snake, just let things go. Let them, like the clouds in the sky, let them come and go. Don't fixate on them. Doesn't matter if they're good or bad. That's how you start to unwind habitual tendencies that are really hard to get at if you're trying to think about them or see where they come from or how'd that happen. That can go on and 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 on. Instead, look at the mind, try to get more engaged with the blue sky mind, and let everything start to flow away itself. And then you'll see how you are in the world. It's a totally different experience. And then take some supplements that are key to help you to get through some of the tough spots. And sometimes you need them for a long time, depending on what you have. And just engage in that back and forth. And you'll make a whole bunch of other healthy choices simply because you feel better, you're more confident, and you feel like it's not so hopeless, or this whole COVID thing's not so bad. Like, oh my God, I'm not so scared, because you feel more empowered psychologically and physically. So I kind of like to leave there, and any questions, just feel free to start asking if you have any. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jason. We do have a couple of questions that have come through. So the first one is, now you did talk about some products and supplements. What do you suggest somebody taking to help manage some stress and cortisol levels, or sleep disruptions or disturbances?
So we took from 3 different traditions, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and Tibetan medicine. We took the 3 top adaptogenic compounds in their systems and then formulated with other things in a product called Complete 360. So the Complete 360 is a mushroom blend. You can take it in capsules or as a powder, or we even have it mixed as a cacao drink called Universal Harmony in our food line, which is called Sensations, just for the idea of you want to feel sensational kind of idea. But for dealing with stress, we even have the NPN on that. It's for stress and immune support. And it's really powerful support, and there's a lot of research on that. So that's Complete 360, capsules, powder, or Universal Harmony in the cacao drink. You can make a mocha with it, or just drink it by itself as a chocolate, hot chocolate or cold chocolate, whatever.
Perfect. This might tie into the same supplements you just talked about. So the question is, to keep my family healthy, what would you suggest for keeping our immune system strong? We have 3 children from ages 4 to 14. My oldest has an autoimmune issues.
Okay, perfect. So then I'm going to talk about the autoimmune disease second. The first one is the Complete 360 or the Immune 7. I mean, Immune 7 won the best immune product in Canada 2 years in a row, last year and this year. It's phenomenal. It has studies on really serious immune issues. We can't disclose all that information only to doctors, because that's not how Health Canada works at this moment. But even just for keeping you healthy at a low dose all the time, keeping you really strong, and it has antiviral compounds in it that interfere with the replication. It's kind of complex, but really interesting, interfering with how the virus, when it hijacks your DNA and tries to replicate itself, it portions of the the mushrooms in the Complete 360 Immune 7, they bind up in there, and then the virus or a microbe or even cancer cells, they can't replicate anymore because they don't have DNA repair mechanisms. Healthy cells do. So they don't interfere with healthy cells, they encourage their development, but they interfere with unhealthy cells like cancer cells, bacterial cells, viruses that don't have proper DNA mechanisms. So if you interfere with the replication, it just stops. And that's exactly what you want. It also interferes with coupling of different microbes and viruses to the cell membrane. And there's research on all of that. So in other words, you're not letting it in the cell. If it does get in the cell, you're blocking its ability to replicate. And if you keep low stress, which mushrooms do, they help get into this blue sky mind idea. That's what the Tibetans used them for, to help their meditation, same as the Chinese. Then low stress, you decrease your inflammation, you decrease, and you improve your immune system. For autoimmune disease, I would use the same things. If I had autoimmune disease, and I've talked a lot about this is my specialty years ago, working with rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus, polyarthritis, polymyalgia, which is a more severe kind of form of fibromyalgia. Even psoriasis, eczema. My brother suffered serious eczema all over his face and everything. He got cured of that using the recovery. So the recovery or recovery 3.0, which has the curcumin in it, with the complete 360 or immune 7, whichever your choice is. Benefit of complete 360, it has more stress relieving compounds added into, and it also comes in powdered versions and that chocolate version. So that's kind of what I would take if I had an autoimmune or any kind of immune weakened condition, is I'd be on, for myself, complete 360 or universal harmony, and the one of the recoveries, the powder recovery or recovery 3.0, which has the curcumin, either or. Sorry, that was a bit long.
Perfect. Next question. Have you worked with children with FASD? Since they have organic brain damage, we're wondering if there's any resources to help them learn mindfulness and increase their self-regulation issues.
Okay, so there is definite information on this if you look online of different skillful means you can use to help someone with any type of condition that they're working with that doesn't allow the mind to focus or concentrate. They'll use different visual or auditory cues that will bring them into that kind of state. And they resonate with that. So everybody resonates with that blue sky mind. So if you can even use any type of skillful means possible, sound, sights, breathing, even some type of pleasurable smell, is to bring them into that state, they'll naturally try to get more into that state. Or it will give them a tool to get out of other states of mind, right? That have that agitation or wanting to stay boxed in because you get frightened. It'll help loosen up and become more expanded. That's the whole idea of mindfulness too, is that it allows you to become more expansive, let your borders to drop a little bit more because you feel more confident. Instead of holding so tightly all the time, that's the stressed mind trying to control everything. The relaxed mind doesn't feel the need to control because there's a lot of confidence going on that it can adapt. And that's key with FASD too, right? It's helping them to feel more loose and adapt. And if you can just, like I said, look it up and see different things that might work better for certain kids than others.
Wonderful.
Hope that was helpful.
Yeah. So we've got a couple more questions. The next one is, do you have any product or supplement suggestions for somebody who is experiencing memory loss due to stress or memory issues due to stress?
Okay, so that, again, that's the complete 360, because if you get stress under control, it engages different parts of your brain that help your memory again. When you disengage this part of your brain, it really affects your memory. Also, this is so crucial for memory and stress. Movement, exercise, they showed that just 30 minutes of a regular paced walk, it not only stops the hippocampus, which is associated with memory, short-term memory, it not only stops its degradation, which happens at a rate of about 1 to 2% after you hit like 60 or 65, but even before that, it's shrinking. It actually starts increasing its size. So you're improving your memory just by walking. Lion's mane is the #1 thing I think in the world to improve memory. And that's why it's a huge thing out there right now, lion's mane, and it should be. It's a mushroom that has superpower in its ability to encourage neuronal development and new connections and blood flow and everything. It increases nerve growth factor. Even in your extremities, if you had a surgery or injury, you need to reform the nerves and blood vessels, lion's mane can encourage that. And your digestive system's loaded with nerves in the enteric nervous system that start dropping off as you age, with blood flow decreasing and nerve. And so if you can encourage that to start to infiltrate again with lion's mane, you get better digestion. So lion's mane, nerves anywhere in your body are helping to regenerate and improving memory. And that's what our claims are for, actually, on the lion's mane. That one also comes in a cacao drink called Clear Mind. So if you're going to be focused on the mind, lion's mane, which also helps with stress. All the mushrooms help with stress, just like ashwagandha in the Indian system, they help with stress. And helping with stress will, like I said, get better blood flow here.
Fantastic. The next question, which is a good one, is curcumin and turmeric the same supplement?
Okay, so quick turmeric, curcumin 101. Turmeric is used in the ancient East. In all the peoples used it for cutting inflammation and digestive inflammation. So opposite of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like aspirin, ibuprofen, Tolmetin, naproxen, they actually induce inflammation in the gut. And and cause bleeding and that kind of thing. Anyways, curcumin doesn't do that, but it's not as powerful. So turmeric is the root or the plant that you use in curries to make them yellow. Turmeric is about 2 to 5% curcumin. Curcumin is the compound. They found in studies that curcumin is the one responsible for most of the pain relief. So they extracted and purified it to 95%. So that's the curcumin. That is still not quite as powerful as aspirin and ibuprofen. What we worked with a researcher, you pull out of curcumin is made up like estrogens, made out of estradiol, estrone, and estriol, 3 different estrogens. Curcumin is actually made up of 3 main curcuminoids. And curcumin 1 is about 90%, curcumin 2 almost 10%, curcumin 3 generally less than 1%, down to about 2.2%. They found that the curcumin 3 fraction is the most powerful by far for the pain relievers. A researcher a decade ago, he learned, because he treated colitis with curcumin, and some worked better than others. He found it had ones that had even a tiny bit more curcumin 3 eliminated his colitis. So when in the lab, they extracted and purified curcumin, and it's now at 30%. We have one at 30% instead of 0.5%. And it can get 10 to 14 times stronger as an anti-inflammatory than aspirin or ibuprofen. So the curcumin 3 fraction is what we do at PURICA. We're the only ones, I think, basically doing it. We're working with the researcher, and it's basically brand new technology put out to market a couple of years ago. So that's curcumin, a quick curcumin. And curcumin 3 gets inflammation right at the root with something it inhibits. It's called mitogen stress-induced kinase, MSK1. It's inside the cell. It's like the thing that starts the whole process. And if you can get that and block it or inhibit it to a great extent, you deal with the inflammation before it gets out of control and causes a cytokine storm. So anyways, curcumin 3 does that, curcumin 1 and 2 don't. So anyways, that was a little bit long-winded too.
No, that was fantastic.
I tried to go fast.
So I think we have time for maybe one more question. But before we do that, if people do want to reach out to you directly, Jason, if they have questions, how can they get in touch with you?
So just get a hold of the office at service@purica.com. And then if the office can answer it, they'll answer it for you. Or because they have dealt with doctors, we've been dealing with doctors and vets and that since the beginning of our company, something years ago. Or I live on Salt Spring Island, but I go to the company, which is on Vancouver Island, on Fridays. So if you can catch me on Pacific Mountain Time, or sorry, Mountain Standard Time, if you get me from about 12 o'clock till 4 o'clock, I answer questions during that period. So you can just call in the office toll-free number, 1-877-746-9397. So 877-746-9397. But the office, there's a lot of people that can answer a lot of questions in there too. But if you want to talk to me specifically, I'm there on Fridays just for that purpose.
Fantastic.
Or your doctor, if you want a doctor to talk to me too, I'm available for your doctors as well.
That's awesome. So, okay, the last question we have time for is, what would you recommend for chemo-related symptoms such as nausea?
Okay, so this is another thing that you're not supposed to talk about. So I'm going to skirt it because I know because of what I've seen in the last 18 years with one of our products, which we weren't actually selling for the first 2 years, we were giving it away to chemotherapy patients and radiation, people on radiation, or both, or neither. And if they did have the nausea and the low energy and the skin changes and the blurriness and just different things going on, I would use the Immune 7 because of its track record and the recovery combined to deal with those things. But now I think for myself, I know Immune 7 has won the best top immune product 2 years in a row in Canada, according to clinicians and the general public and retailers. So it's pretty potent. But what I still think is Complete 360 was my attempt to go beyond even that. And so I feel Complete 360 is definitely the way to go with that. That's what I would do. And that's what I would get anybody that I know, I would get them taking it. And that's also why we made it available in a powder form. You can put it in soup, in smoothies, in salad dressings. It doesn't have much taste. And so it's an easy way to integrate your life, and it's far less expensive in a powder form. Or take it in that hot drink form, the Universal Harmony. Hope that was helpful.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? We are right at 8 o'clock, so we are going to call it a night, but a huge thank you, Jason, to you and the PURICA team for putting together and being part of this fantastic webinar. As mentioned in tonight's presentation, you can find PURICA Immune 7, Complete 360, the Curcumin, any of the PURICA products at your local Nutters. If they don't have it, we can order it in for you. So just, ask the vitamins manager or the associate that you're speaking with. And of course, next week, Tuesdays, Power Days start. So it's a perfect time to stock up and save on your favorite PURICA supplements. So if you would like more information on Power Days or Nutters locations, visit our website, nutters.com, for details. That's it for us. So thank you so much, Jason, for such a great presentation.
Thank you.
And we hope to have you on again.
Thank you. I'd love to be on again. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. And thanks to everybody for joining us. Oh, thank you, Tanya, as well.
Oh, thanks. That's fantastic.
That's it for us, guys. Have a wonderful evening. And as mentioned, this is a recorded session. So check your inbox shortly. You'll have a copy of it so you can catch it on the replay. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.